So Judith Custer, my friend for 50 years, was at my 70th birthday party where I had a birthday book for people to write good wishes in. And I had shared a reading from the Unitarian hymnal about how we come from the stars. And so she made this image based on that reading. And at the bottom it says, out of the stars in their flight, out of the dust of eternity, here we have come. Richard Weston. This is also Judith Custer, and it's up in Maine where she was raised in, where her family had a camp her father built. And it's a place where her love of nature really was fostered. And this is just one of my most favorite paintings that she ever did. And it's more beautiful because I know she loves the place.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah. So this is also Judith Custer, and who loves flowers and gardens and wild things. I think the title of this one was At Midnight, the Flowers Win. But it's just her joyful self and in a wild garden.
Sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
Just started.
Okay. I call this Judith's Van Gogh because it looks to me like his images of the fields and trees. And I can see the sower throwing seeds across the fields there that he does in his paintings. But it's also the colors, the way he would use them as well. But Judith loves the land as much as he did in his paintings, and she captures the sensuousness of it so beautifully here. Now we've been looking at acrylics that Judith did, but really she does a lot in watercolor. This is Judith's garden and her clothesline, and she is a true Mainite. She hangs those sheets out there when they're freezing.
Got it.
I should have done this one first by Judith. This is called Diane's Pool. And when we first met, I was making little hand pots out of clay in an adult ed class. And Judith asked me if I would make a couple for her, and she would trade me a painting from her portfolio. I said, you would trade me your painting from your portfolio for these little donkey pots I make? And she said, yes. And this is what I chose.
No.
And I love it so much. And again, it's the wild feeling and the Maine woods. And at any rate, it's just the beginning of my deep friendship with her. And she did lots of paintings in the beginning with ladders.
Okay, now say that again, because
Carolyn Curtis.
Yep. Okay.
In the beginning of doing her artwork, probably 10 years or more ago, she did lots with ladders, and it was kind of a symbol of a path of learning and to deeper understanding of life and her journey.
Okay.
Carolyn made this as a birthday card for me. And this houses, dwelling places, was part of her exploration at that point. And look at what the houses turned into. The houses, okay, come over here now. houses turned into arrows. And again, in her exploration of herself and life, it's like, which way is she going? The fire at Seabury. All my clothes and John's were in dry cleaning bags. And Carolyn came to help me get my clothes out of the bags. And she fell in love with the little tags and things that were on the clothes bags. Some said, "Carefully finished by." Others said, "My name, Fire, Seabury." And she says, "What are you going to do with all these little colorful tags?" And I said, "Throw them out." She said, "Oh, no, they would be fabulous in a collage." And so she gathered them all up. And then later, I got this, I think as a Christmas present from her, which she called Carefully Finished. And it's just such a riot of joyfulness. And I love it dearly.
Okay.
This is my friend Carolyn Turtist. She calls this the Tree of Life. But it is done on using Torah parchment that was not acceptable for the actual scrolls, because her daughter-in-law is one of the first women Torah scribes in the history of Judaism. And Carolyn brought this back from Israel on a trip there and made several collages out of it. And I think it's a beautiful piece.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So this is a self-portrait by my friend David Rogers. I met David in the 5th grade. I had a mad crush on him in the 7th grade. We went through high school together, sharing the same English teacher that had a profound effect on both of us. And then we went different ways. We actually didn't even belong in the same social crowd in high school. And then 50 years later, friends put us in touch with one another again. He was then living in Argentina. He had retired there. His money would go farther there. And he had made his living as a portrait artist. And David and I have, over the last 10 years, written to each other in email almost every day. And I have several more of his paintings I want to show you. These are, so David moved to Iowa from Argentina after he developed some health problems. And these are scenes of Iowa that he painted. And he sends me pictures of what he does. And from time to time, they're for sale. And so I have bought them. And I just love what he does with the skies and the various shades of green, especially in the upper one, are just so beautiful, the farmland. There's another thing to notice. David often has a road in his paintings. And I don't know exactly what the roads mean to him, but maybe it's a bit like Carolyn in her ladders. It's sort of the journey that he's on.
Okay.
So David is in Iowa City now, and this is the river that runs through Iowa City and the bridge across it. And it's kind of interesting because you have a cityscape on one side and a city park on the other. But if you look closely, you'll notice that the river is darker close to you, and as it goes farther away, it gets brighter. And I commented on that to David, and he said that was intentional because he wanted the sense of the journey getting brighter the farther he went on it. Now, below that is a small painting that is the view out his north window of a parking garage. He's probably done 24 of this same image, and they're all unique, totally different colors and moods. But I loved the soft colors of this and the geometry of it. And finally, he loves it when he can get a model. And a young woman came and did model for, I think it was a class that he took at the senior center in Iowa City. And she assumed a lot of different positions for them, and he combined them all in one sketch and then one painting. And I just think this is such a fun image. Okay. So this is a Navajo rug that I bought in a Utah museum. And I loved it because it's the tree of life and it had birds in it. And birds are a common denominator between my mother and me and my son and my grandson, Ronan. And the tree of life is a beautiful image. And so my thinking was that I would buy this rug and I would pass it on to Ronan. Later, on this outing with Rhodes Scholar, we went to a Navajo elder's home, and he had his family demonstrate various traditional things to us. His sons did hoop dances for us, and his little granddaughter, who danced so hard that her mother had to hold her eyeglasses for her while she danced. And his sister-in-law was an excellent weaver, and she gave us a demonstration of Navajo weaving, in which she told us that traditionally their works are symmetrical. So one side and the other side are mirror images of each other. But the Navajo, in a bit of respect for the great power, make one error in the symmetry, at least. And all true Navajo weavings have that exception to the symmetry. Well, my friend and I could hardly wait to get back to our room where my Navajo rug was stored and open it up and look for the place where the symmetry was off. I showed this to my grandson, who was to inherit it, and he pointed immediately to the place. Mm-hmm. He said, accurately, the gray in this bird's wings is lighter than the gray in this bird's wings, mm-hmm. and also in this one and this one. Mm-hmm. There are many artists that live at Seabury. Joy Floyd is one of the most talented collage artists here, and her unique style was to always use recycled materials. She, in particular, loved to get hold of painters' drop cloths or their discarded garments. And in this one, you can see the background is an old piece of drop cloth, and this is the cuff of a work shirt with the buttons replaced. It had been used so many times. And then these are other scraps of material that she would save and then just decide what color she thought went together in an abstract way. She started because her husband, who was a minister, needed some kind of activities for the children in his parish, and there was no money for materials, so she would gather bottle caps and the ends of cans and scraps of cloth and used clothing that her kids had outgrown and have the kids make them into collages, and look where it went. The top one, this is also a piece of drop cloth, and maybe part of that, but she was a wonderful abstract artist, all recycled cloth. Eventually, Joy gave up her studio outside her home and consolidated into her apartment here at Seabury to do her art. And when she did that, she shifted more to paper from cloth. She also shopped at our thrift store at Seabury and particularly looked for old pieces of lace and doilies and so forth. But she began working with discarded boxes and just cardboard. And this one looked a little celestial to me with the spirals and circles and a little glitter. And so This one was one of the ones that I bought of hers that I loved. And then as publicity for a show, she used this image, which is called Joy. This piece by Joy is called The Green Ladybug. And I just love the colors in it. And so it's another of her beautiful abstracts of cloth. Now, Joy died a year ago, and the artists at Seabury wanted to pay tribute to her in a special way. And so we all tried making collages in the spirit of Joy Floyd. And I'll show you two that I made. So I had a pair of old shorts that I decided to use the back pocket from it in the spirit, her spirit. And I just put together a number of things that had bright colors that I liked. But I also had an angel card that said Joy. And this was my tribute to her. The ceramic pendant is from my very early clay work when my children were infants, almost 50 years ago. So in this one, I also used a pendant with a little bird on it that I did almost 50 years ago when I was starting to do clay work. Remember the story of swapping pots for Judith's paintings? Mm-hmm. And I made these pendants out of the scraps from other things that I was doing. This huge easel that it's standing on belonged to Charlie Ferguson, who was my next door neighbor and the director of the New Britain Museum of American Art for many years. And when Charlie died, his kids gave me this easel, and I am so honored to have it with Charlie's paint marks still on it. And I don't think I'll ever paint anything that big, but it's wonderful to have it.
And wasn't there a story about the
Yes, but I don't know who Ned Page was.
Okay.
So I'm not going to tell that.
Okay. But Ferg is obviously Ferguson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, this is the painting I bought from Charlie Ferguson, and it's very typical of the kind of scene that he painted. This is Fisher's Island, and on Fisher's Island he had not only a studio but a house where he lived much of the year until he died, and much of his artwork was done there. He was particularly interested in birds, and most of his paintings have a bird in them. And I just feel very blessed to have one of his pieces of art. A little side story is that he sometimes got assignments to do wallpaper, essentially, even for bathrooms of very wealthy people. And so when he needed to mount the canvas for one of these paintings while he lived here at Seabury, he needed help. So my husband John used to go over and help him hang the canvases on the walls so Charlie could paint these giant things. And it was kind of one of those little special relationships that John had with Charlie.
That's great. Okay.
Well, this is by Roseanne Hauser, who works in oil pastels and who has completely organized, reinforced the artists at Seabury and gotten the administration really excited about the fact that we have such a talented, creative community of artists here. So the administration has improved our gallery space and provided a studio space for people that don't have room for their art projects in their apartment. And it's just been a wonderful partnership. But Roseanne is the energy behind all of that. And in this image, I see not only the moon, but like a dragonfly of light shining over the water. Maybe you can see the dragonfly too. Okay. This is also by Roseanne. It was one of her that demonstrates what beautiful skies she can do. And I don't know where the scene is, and I'm not sure what the title was of this, but I was just happy to have one of her beautiful oil pastels. And married a wonderful painter as well, Lou Mazzata. One of Lou's favorite subjects is the water and the waves. And I love the way the light was shining through that breaker, and that he picked up the yellow also on the horizon, unifying this painting.
Okay.
This is my neighbor, Sally Foster, who is in her 90s now and started painting at about 70, which was part of what gave me the incentive that perhaps I could begin painting at that age as well. This, I'm pretty sure, is the river between Kittery, Maine and Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I recognize the lighthouse from my visits there, and I just happen to particularly love this scene and the colors and the way that she blends the rocks and the water and the sky and the greens. This is by Linda Isham, another Seabury artist who does a great deal of very delicate dried plants and flowering plants, but with a lot of white space. This is a little different in her work, but she goes up to a special place in Maine, and this is a river near there that she did. And I just loved the fast moving water and the contrast of the black rock and the white foam. This panel is 4 original watercolors representing the 4 seasons. And it was done by a sister of St. Joseph. And I bought it on a retreat at Genesis Spiritual Center. And I bought it for my mother, who loved nature. And when Mom died, this is something that I kept because I also loved the images.